Today, we're going to talk about creative careers and advice that I would give as someone in my late 30s who's achieved a lot of what I consider to be creative success for people at any stage, whether you're 16, 18, 25, 35, but you're looking to make that transition into a more rewarding creative life and figure out your trajectory. So why am I qualified to give any level of advice to you about this? This was a video about making money, which it is not, a little bit, but not like go make money online. I flash the G-Wagon and the Cybertruck and talk about this or that or how much we make a month, but this is not about what creative fulfillment is like. And I've gotten a lot of those things, but not necessarily from creativity, from the entrepreneurship that's spawned by creativity. But the biggest flex that I can give is that I only work on interesting things. I get to select every day the really most interesting stuff that's come into my life that I've been able to find, period, and work specifically on that. Little to no direction that I have to take that would be bad from other people. This, for a lot of creatives, is a real grail. And you combine that with the fact that you have freedom. You can say, I don't want to work on this, or I do want to work on that. And I have the time in your day to actually go position yourself whichever way you whether, as long as you're making enough money to survive creatively and you have those freedoms where you can say, no, I don't want to work on that. You're working with direction that is decent and collaborative versus someone telling you what to do. And you're working on interesting things. That's an amazing life. And it's really hard as a creative to get there without really positioning yourself. And we're gonna walk through a ton of different ways and times in your life and decision points and things you'll need to do to kind of build yourself into that arc. So I'm in my new studio space. I've been converting my garage into a better film and working studio. I'll document some of that in some other videos. But for those of you that have watched a bunch of my stuff before, hopefully you're happy I'm out from behind my unreadable whiteboard. And you see a bit of how my creative environment morphs based on the things I'm working on and how we adjust this space over time. So first off, if you're a creative, people often focus on one thing. You want to be a designer, an art director, a photographer, whatever it is. Videography, creating, influencing. But you need to develop a more holistic skill set. And the sooner that you jump into that and just do the basics, and it's truly easier than ever with the things we have online to give us a baseline, the better off you're going to be. You need to be able to design. You need to be able to edit video. You need to be able to compellingly write. It is an amazing plus if you can sell, and I would highly recommend to learn to do it, as painful as it is. And then email marketing basics. We're going to talk about all 5 of those things and why they matter and how you learn. But really, you can learn it through jobs where they actually help you learn those things in the real world. You can learn it through courses. I'm a decent proponent of like going and buying something that teaches you how to do stuff. I did my first TikToks because I bought this guy Jimmy Farley's course. I had no idea where to begin, and it was some of the best money I ever spent. Now he's blown up, and you can go check his Lambo on his page. And then just YouTube and the internet, which is how I went to school for graphic design, but I've learned way more about Illustrator on YouTube than anywhere else. And books, mentors, however you choose to learn, doesn't matter. Just go chase these down. If you can do those things, you will be able to make money for yourself or at good jobs forever. You will be universally useful at any branding or creative job. If you're starting out and trying to master these new skills, I'll dive into that in a second. So first, what do I mean by each of these? So design. If you are a creative and you want to be a creative director or an art director, or you want to actually manage and execute projects, the ability to graphic design is absolutely imperative. You might want to argue that, oh, I don't need to have that skill set. You should have that skill set. It'll make everything you do significantly faster and better. So how do you actually learn to design? What does that mean? Just really learn how to have Photoshop, Illustrator, Canva for basics, like locked in. My favorite way to approach how to learn this is tied into how you can learn all of these. And we'll get to there in a minute. But you should be able to open Illustrator and create almost any idea that you have in your mind, take it to like a 70% version. Because a lot of design, when you get to management and finishing, is going and passing it to a specialist who can take it to 100%. You should be able to bring that vision enough to life that someone will see it and be like, that's sick, I understand where you're going, and then take it to the completion rate or make it better. Then we have editing. And I don't mean you need to go into Premiere Pro and be some like insane video editor, but you should be able to have CapCut, make quick edits of stuff, piece a couple clips together, add music, cut things to the beat, know how green screen effects work, do the basics. And a lot of this is around being able to document your own work or to be able to understand and explain to people how to make things succeed on social media. Because whether we like it or not, a ton of creative work is going to be shown on social. We're going to be judged by social. And your ability to say, hey, what if you just edited this slightly different is almost imperative to making sure that your stuff gets seen and that some of the things you work on actually have success in the world. And it is really not that hard. CapCut has changed the game for how easy video creation is, and you can be a full professional like in a sick and twistedly short amount of time. Now we get to writing. Writing is just having clarity and depth to your thoughts. And for a lot of visual people, they kind of ignore the writing side of it. Some of them have leaned into writing early, and you'll see people that have them intertwined. But if you aren't, you consider yourself a visual person, it's worth developing the frameworks with which you can convince people or explain your decisions and rationale through writing. I'll talk a bit about strategies for that later in the video. Then we have selling, and this is the hardest one. But the idea that when you're in front of somebody, you can pitch them on a thing and understand how to not make it about you, make it about them and their pain points, and explain the value of it and try and get money from them is a huge difference between being able to get the work that you want and be able to get compensated the way you want for what you're doing and not. And this is one of the hardest skill sets to learn. And I learned this by literally being in outbound sales, which is truly brutal, like call center level. Hey, we're just dialing down a list. And a lot of people don't want to do that, totally get it. That is the easiest way to do it. But there's a lot of like psychology and courses and basics on this online that will at least get you somewhere. But the number one thing you can do in that position is just be in the pitches and in the sales process at wherever you work. And I do recommend anyone who wants to have serious creative career, even if you want to be more entrepreneurial or freelance, go have some of those jobs at agencies or at places where you have to sell and try to insert yourself as part of that process. Because the sooner you learn how to have a compelling pitch in front of somebody, to make a compelling deck, to price your services in an email, to know how to respond when someone says that's too expensive, or to know, when you have an opportunity to continue a contract or expand a contract and ask for more are like critical skills to get. And then email marketing basics. And this is basically, I just mean the ability to create a campaign in any email service, create an automation in any service, which is when an automatic email responder comes when someone signs up or does an action. If you can do those things, you are both very useful inside companies you have, because surprisingly few people do. I akin this now to, it used to be like 5 years ago, no one knew how to make a PDF, right? But making a PDF is very easy. Now, tons of people don't know how to send an email campaign, but it is also very easy. And you're going to want to, in your career, whether it's for your business or whether it's for you as a freelancer or whether it's at a company you work at or you start your own thing or you become a creator or whatever it is, you are going to want to do email marketing. And it is dumb easy. And if you have just gotten that basic level skill set and you know to implement it all the time, it is just an immediate double-digit increase in however much money you can make at almost anything that you are working on. So how do I learn all these things, especially when you have your own life around you? And I'll say, I always used to think I didn't have enough time, and now I'm a father and I really don't have enough time. And so all that time you think you don't have, unless you're sitting around with like 3 kids, and even then you probably have the time, you have it. Like there's so much ability to spend time working on things and on improving yourself. And if you're tired or you rather zone out or scroll or whatever it is, like that is not a valuable use of your time. You could take 15 minutes, 20 minutes to do what I'm about to describe to you. And that is complete one thing a day in your educational journey. And this is something I still do absolutely constantly. I'm working on this right now. I'm learning how to sketch better. But literally, I mean, one thing a day to learn how to do any of those 5 things I talked about prior. Design, edit, write, sell, email market. Pick and learn how to do one thing a day. And here's how. So I talk about this with people who want to design all the time. Because all these people ask how I become a creative director. How do I do what you do? And I go like, if you haven't learned how to design, don't even talk to me. But if you do want to learn how to design, here's how you do it. And I would literally start with YouTube tutorials with Illustrator in particular. Learn how to make Illustrator shapes. That's one day. Learn how to curve type. That's another day. How to round corners. How to make 3-dimensional objects. How to name layers and folders intelligently. How to make things proportional to real life. How to make gradients. Complex gradients, how to erase backgrounds, the basics of how to retouch, how to make a thumbnail, photo treatments, collaging, layer merging. That's just a start. Just go through that list. You learn that you have a really decent chunk of how to use Illustrator and you're gonna kind of be a weapon. But literally pick one thing in Photoshop or Illustrator every day. Same thing with CapCut. And I'll list some things out for CapCut. How to add captions, how to use keyframes, how to use a green screen effect, how to fix audio, how to retouch a person, how to edit a bunch of clips together to music. Again, just roll down that list. CapCut is a free app. You can learn a bunch of that on Canva free or on like Photopea, which is free and in the cloud. It's a version of Photoshop if you can't dive into Illustrator. But one thing a day, literally for the rest of your life, 15 minutes to learn one of those things. And if you do that 365 days, maybe we'll do a challenge on this sometime, but 365 days, you're gonna learn from 0 to 365 the skill set it takes to be a successful creative. If you have spent 365 days and you've done 45 things in Illustrator, 20 things in Photoshop, 30 things in CapCut, 20 writing exercises of X or Y, if you've actually gone through 365 days of spending 15 minutes to a half hour of improving one skill in your life every day, you are gonna be a weapon in 1 year. And cool, you don't have to do every day. Yeah, you kind of do. If you just make it a habit and a routine in your life where you're always spending that time to do something, that's how you actually get things done. And like I mentioned, I'm 38. I'm, for all intents and purposes, very successful. I still do that all the time because I'm adding to my toolkit. I plan to be relevant and I want to be relevant when I'm 65 as a designer, as a creator, And if I keep upping my skill set and understanding how the world changes around me, I am knocking things off that list and all it takes is one thing a day. Now we're going to get into a mind state, and that is archive all of your work online. This is something I wish I'd done. I do a decent amount of now and plan to do more of in the future. But really, you need social media and you need a blog. I talked in my previous creative direction video about when Virgil Abloh reached out to Samuel Ross, about working on some stuff and was just like, hey, do you have a portfolio? And Samuel Ross was like, here's portfolio 1. Here's actually this sub-portfolio of other weirder stuff. Here's a blog where I explain all my decisions about this in depth. Here's my theoretical, like he just had like a list of like, here's all the references that show not just how I work and the quality of my work, but how I think. And when someone fires that back, when they're interested in your work, like that is a surefire hire. That is the kind of thing where you're like, oh, like these people not only have the ability to design like this, they also have the ability to explain it. And then they are taking the time to actively showcase themselves online. Even if the work is mid, compare that to anybody else, and you are at least putting through the process to get somewhere. So for every single thing you complete, whether it's something you're working on at work, something you work on personally, or just, hey, when you actually went and learned some of those things in Illustrator, you created or made an exercise, put it online and write about it. To write about it, we're gonna talk about why, you're gonna talk about the inspiration you have behind it, how you did it, what you're proud of about it, and what you would do better about it. And this is important, right? Because when you write about things, even if the things you make aren't good, when someone sees it and they see the ability for you to say, here's what I like about what I did, here's why I did it, and here's what I'm gonna do to get better, that shows the ability of someone to take the steps up inside their design career, or inside, this would be video editing, art direction, whatever it is that you're doing, photography. But being able to think critically about that both establishes you to other people and to yourself, because now you're thinking every day, here's why what I did could be better next time, or here's why I like this or didn't. But you have to have that thought of here's what I would do better, because then you're consistently improving and you're basically giving yourself a roadmap to enable your own success. And a lot of this comes from having to write about it. Being able to articulate these things is a skill not many develop, and all it takes is reps. If you're weird about it, you don't want to showcase your stuff online, just be anonymous. We live in this amazing world where people don't have to know it's you. You can literally say, instead of John putting stuff online, it's gonna be JJ Studios or whatever it is. Come up with a creative name, put stuff on the internet, and just make sure you're continuing that process, because a lot of this isn't just for other people, it's for you to look back. The reason I wish I had this is I'd love to look back on every single thing I designed, websites, logos, restaurant menus from the beginning of time, and look at that arc. And I don't have that scenario for me, and the computers disappear and go away. Being able to look at that archive and then watch your work and your life transform along with it is a really powerful thing. And if you do become someone legendary, or you do work on things that are incredible, and you're gonna wanna go tell that story, you now have the ability to do it. And the best upside is people are gonna follow along with your journey, either as fans or potential clientele, and then to become something bigger than yourself that really enables you to succeed in the world. And this world we have is so heavily built on network effects, and network effects from unknowns, just people that find you on the internet, that it's worth leaning into. If you're wondering where you're gonna get the time for this, that's next. I'm just gonna tell you right now, you have so many hours. Create instead of consume. And when you consume, consume intentionally. I mentioned it before, but I look back at life before kids and wonder, what did I do with my time? And now every single moment I am humming because I have to be. I was out with my family this morning. I set up and hit this video and a TikTok that I was doing earlier. I'm gonna go out to another activity. I will be back and I have a whole set of like 6 or 5 things. It's a Sunday. I'm organized to a T because I have no other choice to achieve my goals and still spend great time with my family than to do that. If you're not in that scenario, you have the time. And if you are in that scenario, you need to organize and want the success to that level. And if you know you have time, you should do 1 learning a day, like we talked about, 1 design a day or creation a day. Again, photo shoot, video, whatever it is that you are passionate about, and post every day. If you have 2 hours to scroll or watch TV, what I just talked about is now your 2-hour process that replaces that, and it is so worth it. Imagine in 100 days, if you had designed 100 t-shirts or whatever it is you're into, or made 100 outfit videos, or drawn 100 logos, or made 100 animations, how closer to your goals you'd be. Now multiply that by if those 100 things were online. Like I mentioned, I'm already successful. I also still try to design a thing a day. I have hundreds of things in the archives. Like I worked on a bag this morning, just sketching it with my son. This mind state and that ability to put in reps on anything you do all the time instead of Netflix or whatever it is hugely impactful. And a lot of these things you can kind of do at the same time as long as you're intentional. But this ties into the bigger challenge, because a lot of people can shift that mind state from consumption to creation. Once it's just sitting there in the back of your head, it's pounding you, I need to create instead of consume. I need to create instead of consume. But it does lead to something in your life that is hard to tackle, which I'll call creative loneliness. This is the biggest challenge. It really sucks because you need to separate your time and goals from those around you, unless they share the same goals, in which case you're really blessed because most people don't often have that. You need to find people in your life that do things to completion and then do things with them. If you have people in your life that share the same interests and things as you, but they don't ever actually do anything, that's almost more of a harm than a good. And either you're pushing them to complete things with you, or it's a hard weight that you may not want to have. If you don't have any people around you that actually complete things or do the projects or that are bettering themselves, you need to find them because you need that community. And luckily we have online. To actually make those friends and have those relationships online, you need to have everything with a purpose. You can't just DM people like, hey, da 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 da, like your whatever. You need to DM with a purpose, right? You need to connect to other people that actually do things, to put out a scenario with which you do things together. I recommend finding people at your level or slightly above you can find on the internet and sending them messages with a purpose. Say, hey, do you want to try, do a thing? Hey, I'd love to collaborate on a t-shirt design with you, whatever that is. How do you make or succeed in a thing? Or hey, I'm trying to start a book club, whatever it is. Do a thing with intention that allows you and that person to do something together versus just messaging about stuff. And it may just be, hey, want to join a creative group chat and talk about packaging all the time? Whatever that is, but it needs a prompt and a finish. But people you have creative action with make the world go round. Not just creatives you know or people that share the same likes. People you can do creative action. And I'll say that again because that becomes your whole world. If you have 2 people like that, it's better than 0. If you have 100 people like that, you can make the world turn. And this goes to the next piece. And I get asked about this a lot. Can you be successful as a creative without living in a major city? Some people can, but it certainly makes it way easier to at some point, especially earlier in your career, be in New York, LA, London, Paris. You need to break out of your comfort zone, learn big city operation and speed, and be around the people and inspiration that also choose to interact in places like that, which is important. If you can figure out New York, like that is the place. That is the tried by fire. LA is a good place to go later on or a good secondary. And also think about those transitions. Every time you move, your network expands. If you're stuck in your town or you're stuck in a place and for comfort, there's such a big effect. I've moved a lot of times in my life. I grew up in Hawaii, college in Arizona. I moved to New York after that, moved to Austin after that. I moved to LA, Southern California, now Orange County. I've moved a bunch. I have a network from each of those times. I do business with people from each of those eras. I still make money from across all of those and have friends and network from without those. People often ask me, how did you know so many people? How's your creative network so big? How do you have all these work? And a lot of it just comes from the fact that I was in all these different places, met all these different people, and had a reason to stay in touch with them and to be someone interesting to them. Every time you move, your network expands. And in these places, you will find people that are more akin to what you are looking for. And you will be able to prove to yourself a lot more than staying in whatever small town you're at. And there are distraction cities, like Miami is a distraction city. And there's places that seem more artsy that might be a step from where you are. If you are somewhere super small to go to like a Portland or whatever, but there's a massive difference between what happens there and what happens in a New York or LA. And if you're at these places and you're trying to be around people or make friends or just feel more like a community, like the number 1 and 2 advice I give there sounds so simple is smile a lot more and compliment people. If every day you are complimenting people wherever you go, like your shoes, amazing fit, oh, you're reading that book, that was a great whatever, you are just engaging and putting more things out there and you'll be surprised how much comes back. And the last thing I'm gonna talk about is working. If you're a creative, I really believe before you strike out on your own to go freelance or be an entrepreneur, you should have brand experience and agency experience. At least 2 years or so at each. And be the person when you do that. Like choose to be a working person for X amount of your career. I'm gonna do 4 years, I'm gonna do 6 years, whatever it is. And be the person who takes that super seriously. Even if it sucks, even if it's the wrong place, whatever it is. Be the person that is friendly, down for anything, there early, leaves late. Being in those environments where you learn how those work and then being the person that is just doing a little bit extra there where so few people are doing extra now and are so against what that looks like will open up a ton of doors for you and show you the difference that working makes versus not. And you'll have the frameworks now for how decisions are made in a brand side company or an agency side company and ask those questions. Be the person that wants to be it, sit in the extra meetings, do the extra things. Jobs exist as learning experiences to prepare you better for when you make your own money. Take as much advantage as you humanly can in those scenarios and try to see both sides of the coin. Because for a lot of people, when you go to make your own money, you're either going to want to have an agency and provide services, or you're going to want to have a brand and do your own thing. And then either way, you'll probably be retaining or working with the other ones. And so that understanding, even if it's just for a few years, of the basics of how those work will go a long, long, long way. And for some people, it might be a decade. Like in my own journey, I was doing a lot of things and freelancing a bit at the beginning of it, and then worked full time for about a decade before I really got entrepreneurial. And that was because of me and the things I had to go through and my financial background and certain things that like made it, I had to get to a certain place. But that 10 years was ultra valuable to be able to be more entrepreneurial. And it's okay to take that much time. You have a ton of time in your creative arc. And don't feel bad if there are younger people doing better. Everyone's circumstances are different. But with that, when you work those jobs, I think it is hugely important to make your own money separate from those jobs. And this could be $100, and that could be the goal. Make $100 a month outside of your work from doing something directly. And here's why this is important, is you begin to juggle. Because real entrepreneurship, real freelance, real creative stuff, you are juggling. Even if you're working on one thing, you're kind of always working on a few things. Just the ideas in your head or whatever comes up, or you got brought into this with a friend, it's gonna happen. Learn how to juggle it. And figuring out what it takes to even receive your own $100, $200 a month, $1,000, $5,000, whatever it is. How do you make an invoice? How do you avoid paying self-employment tax? I need to get an LLC and maintain it. How do I set that up? business bank account versus a normal bank account. Having an understanding of how that works, once you've gone through it once, you've done it once, you can do it ad infinitum forever, and you realize both how easy it is and how much of a gate it is that people are always dealing with. Oh, I don't even know how to do X or Y. As soon as you figured it out, as soon as you have gotten your first LLC, put your first invoice out there in the world, gotten paid back, filed your business taxes, whatever it is, and gone through that list of things, you go, okay, you know what? The first time was annoying, but now that isn't that hard. And all of a sudden, if you need to have 7 company structures because of all the insane things you're working on, you at least have the ability to know how to do it or enable somebody else to do it. These things become less intimidating by doing them. If this sounds like a lot, it is, but it prepares you for your creative future, and it is better than consumption. It's better than acceptance of working at a job forever. It's better than not preparing yourself for something better. And that's really what I'm focused on, is just betterment of yourself as a creative, to put yourself in those scenarios. Because if you do the things that I talked about, you work in those types of jobs, you move to a major city, you work on your skill set every day to improve it, you put that out there online, you can be literally whatever you want to be. How bad you are at your skill set now, you will be better than that 365 days of putting that work in later. 4 years of working throughout that. Those are all realistic timeframes. Those are all ways that will actually be impactful. And I cannot encourage you more to go chase that down. Any questions you have, I can hit in future videos. Definitely drop in the comments. And I appreciate you watching. And I really hope that some of this sparks some fire.